Welcome to Marketers Talking Marketing.
Welcome to another episode of Marketers Talking. Today we're joined with Neha. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Jess. Hi, everyone who will be listening to us. So I'm Neha. I come from a tropical island called Mauritius. I consider myself as a solopreneur because I'm alone into my business, and my business is specialized in content strategy, providing services in content marketing, storytelling as well. Like we want to give to tell the story of our clients or the brand through content. This is how I like to say it. And I'm glad to be here today to talk about marketing and everything.
Thank you. I feel like storytelling is such an art where there's so many brands that just focus on kind of repeating this formula of I'm this and I do this for this audience, but really haven't mastered the storytelling side.
Yeah. I feel like storytelling is like the basics of everything, even like telling the story of your brand, telling the story of yourself as a founder or as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. It's like people, they really connect with stories. It's like it's your own story. It's genuine, it's authentic, and the way that you tell your own story really connects with people and like with your potential clients as well. It's not always like like selling my services, selling my products online, and that's it. But like there's always a story behind, and like you say, it's like an art of telling your story. And I would also say, like, I know some founders who they don't feel comfortable to tell their story to the public, and that's normal, of course. But I feel like everyone should be proud of their story, and this is how people connect with you. And when they connect with you, they connect with your brand as well.
What do you say to that founder who doesn't feel comfortable sharing their story or maybe doesn't know what their story is?
Yeah, there's that part too. Like they don't know what their story is. But I would say like the moment that you decided that you're not going to follow the conventional way of just working in an office and you decided to become a founder, that's a story here. Why? This is the why. Why did you decide to just take another path? And there's a story there that we just need to get it, in a very beautiful way, but it remains your story. So what do I say to that founder? I say that I've worked with him, actually give him like small steps till he is like comfortable to tell his story like very proudly. Like it's just like small steps, practicing also with the team internal, telling his story. So this is how I started the business, why I started the business, how I feel today about my story. So like starting it with like internally with team, with his family, to they build up that confidence level, and like they're like proud. Yeah, I had done that, so I can tell people about that, because eventually you have a story which is going to inspire others to do it. And like this inspiration, it's something to be proud of.
Do you find that most people have a little bit of a struggle to get them to tell their story? Or do most people default to here's why I started and they're in it from the beginning and down to share everything?
I think it depends. It depends on the person. Of course, like we have all different type of people, and of course there are the people who are very extroverted and they're okay to telling their story when they're socializing, they are in networking events and everything. And then there are those people who just need like a little push, a little confidence level, increase their confidence, and eventually they get to that point.
Are there any, I feel like I'm asking a million questions, but are there any frameworks that you use to help people kind of construct that story or break it down? And I ask that because I do think for many people, they might internally know their why, but articulating it can be pretty hard.
Yeah, that's true as well. Like I can take my own example. When like I was like in a 9 to 5 job, office job, corporate job, and I was like always in the back end, not really talking about myself, about my brand. And then eventually I switched and I decided to um so I co-founded a startup with a partner, and this was like my first jump into the business world. And like that's a totally different world, because as a co-founder I have to be in front. I have to talk about my brand, I have to talk about myself. And also when you're a startup, like a new business, people don't know you. And the best way to get people to know you is to start telling your story. And telling your story, sometimes it gets like, you get all nervous. You're like, what if people don't like my story? Or what if people don't connect with my story? Or what if just people think that I'm just talking nonsense? So you get all those thoughts, and I would say that's pretty normal. Thoughts as a new business owner, as a new entrepreneur. I would say to have a very strong support system. So this is what helped me. Surround yourself with the people who are always going to be there to support you, to increase your level of confidence. That's one thing, a good support system, and they're going to help you. The startup journey or the entrepreneur world is kind of lonely, especially at the beginning when you just founded a business or anything. And it's very important to get the right people by your side. And then as you start communicating, interacting with other founders as well, you will realize that everyone has a story and it's different. And like, you will also realize that this founder also is a bit like me. He's also nervous when he tells his story. So it's not like you're all alone, like you're all alone in this world, but there are people like us. And the more like we talk to people, share our stories, this is what helps us.
Yeah, I feel like the more a piece of advice I often give people when they're starting out and really nervous is talk to people, because you'll find that you're not alone. There's always someone who has had a similar experience or is also equally as nervous about sharing their story, or ideally went through that experience of being nervous, worked through it, overcame it, and is able to, speak speak confidently now.
Yes.
The fear of being judged, I feel like, drives a lot of that. And in our work, in our work day, work can bring trauma sometimes, and it can be scary, and it can be that fear of really being vulnerable and putting yourself out there.
Yeah, that is true. Especially being vulnerable, and like just talking about yourself also is a lot. Actually, not everyone wants to talk about themselves, about who they really are, the type of person that they are. But I feel like as a founder, especially when you're starting as an entrepreneur, because they're gonna connect. People connect with people. They don't connect with your company, your business. They always want to know who is behind the company, the business, the brand. And yeah, so it's just that the moment that you have, you're proud of your story. I guess that's the thing that I always say. Be proud of your story, no matter how it started, no matter how you feel about it. At the beginning, you have to be proud first by yourself. You have to be proud of the story, and then you will be able to, when you're speaking with people, you're communicating, they will feel that sense of pride also, that that person knows what he or she is talking about.
Yeah. Now, you have a podcast, and the podcast isn't on business or marketing, but I feel like there's probably some overlap here. Can we chat a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I have a podcast. It's called Bold Enough, and I invite people to talk about their stories, actually, their journey. And it's all like people being vulnerable on that podcast and sharing what happened with them, and then eventually giving advice to other people going through the same situation. So it can be like in different aspects, because everyone has different stories. But of course, like an entrepreneur story also is very important. We do, I also talk about how the mental health of an entrepreneur is, we don't talk enough about that actually. We always say, when you read a lot of stuff about a founder, a business owner, you like associate them with, okay, someone who is hustling, working very hard, sacrificing their sleep, their weekends to get their business to the success and everything. You always hear about those things. But the mental health of an entrepreneur is not really spoken about.
Yeah, I feel like when it does come up, it's because we see someone having a mental breakdown. Like I'm thinking of Adam Newman, the WeWork founder, who was
Yeah.
in the middle of the street yelling at people, or it comes up when we see people at like their lowest when they're really struggling with it instead of talking and having resources for it leading up to those situations.
Yeah, it's like the burnout that you get. And then
Yeah.
you realize, why am I doing so much actually? And for whom I'm doing so much? Well, I guess till you don't, go through that burnout phase, you don't really realize that, okay, I need to have a good work-life balance. I need to set boundaries. I need to start learning how to say no to people.
Yeah. And eventually your body, there's a great book, The Body Keeps Account.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the body keeps account, but eventually I feel like your body will force you to take that break and take that moment to prioritize it if you're not taking time for it in the day to day.
That's true, actually. And this is actually what happens when you're feeling like your body gives you signs that it needs to rest, but you're like, no, I can do this. One more
Yeah.
week, 2 more weeks. And then eventually your body is going to just crash. And this is how you feel sick. Then you have no choice. Bed rest.
Yeah. What inspired you to start your podcast?
Well, I always wanted to have a platform to talk about mental health. And first, I was blogging about it. And then I realized that people, they are going to connect more if they hear it and they hear the people's story instead of reading it. And this is how I decided to have the podcast and invite people not only from my country, but like internationally, different types of people, different stories, and like very inspiring. It's always inspiring, like powerful stories that you get to hear.
Yeah, I agree that is a big motivator behind me starting Marketers Talking. Is I got so sick of seeing the same people at every single conference saying the same thing. And I feel like there's so many marketers that have everyone has a story to tell. And they've had great experiences, but they haven't always had that platform to tell their story and to talk about what they've done and to share their advice and recommendations. And it's always great. I will say, I think I've recorded over 100 episodes so far, and no one has been
Wow.
boring. Everyone has had something interesting to share.
That is so great. You're up to 100 episodes.
Yeah. It's always also, I feel like having these conversations too, and when people can see them, it helps kind of level set. And there's people that I've talked to who've said, oh, I'm not really good at this thing. I just find it interesting. And then we start talking. It's like, hold on. You're actually really good at this. You actually have a lot of experience. And they go, wow, I guess I never compared myself to anyone else. I guess I never benchmarked against that. I just assumed that I was like average with it.
Yeah, it's like we're doing, like, it's just having a conversation and it feels like more natural and things are just going to flow. Yeah, a casual conversation.
Yeah. So tying this back to the storytelling conversation we had earlier, do you find that people who are more in touch with their mental health are able to better understand their story and tell it? Do you find there's correlation between those two?
I think yes. I think like we all need to take care of our mental health. whether we like it, whether we want it or not, actually. Mental health, it has such a huge impact on not only our professional life, but like personal as well, like the whole aspect. If your mental health is not in the right place, I feel like the all other aspect of your life are not going to be in the right place as well. And I have known people who has like they never took care of their mental health. They're like it's either fear or denial. But not everyone wants to go like deep and really look into what's going on with them on their mind. And it takes like courage to actually do that, or to say like, okay, I'm gonna see a therapist to help me get better, or things like that. Not everyone wants to do it, but the people that do it, that takes the leap, that takes the bold step to do it, to take care of the mental health, you can see the difference when they talk to other people, in their work, in their personal life. Like it's all related to how they're treating themselves, how they're treating their mind, actually.
Are there any resources that you recommend for people who are maybe listening and saying, I probably do need to prioritize my mental health, but I haven't been doing it because I'm busy working on my business, or I'm just avoiding it?
Okay, so I would take like my example as well. So like I said, this is my second business, but like in my first business, I was like, okay, this is my first business, so I need to work hard, like really hard. So I was working long hours, weekends, and I felt like this was the normal way that an entrepreneur should live, because the environment that I was in, they all told me that I need to keep on hustling. I don't really like the word hustling today, but they told me, you need to keep hustling, you need to sacrifice your sleep, you need to give everything to your business, as you won't succeed. But if you go and see the most successful people in business today, they're going to tell you how they prioritize mental health, how they have a very good work-life balance, how they take time for their family. I guess like here for my second the second business that I have, I took like the learnings from the first business. So I have learned to prioritize things, to set like very strict boundaries between me and my clients. The power of saying no. When you're a new business owner, you want to say yes to all the projects, increase your client portfolio, say yes to all the clients, to all the work, even if it's not in the contract, just to get like a good review, a good testimonial, so that you can grow the business. But now, no, I think choosing your clients you have to be very wise into that. You can't just take any client and bring them into your space. So this is important as well. It helps to preserve the mental peace, and learning to say no to the projects that like you can see it's going to take up so much of your time that you won't have a work-life balance. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself the questions. I have a business, yes, but is the business my life, or is it part of my life?
Oh, I feel like that's a very transformative question for, especially, I'm sure there is someone listening who knows subconsciously that they're on the edge of burnout, but does not want to acknowledge it and is trying to push through because they're watching people online who push hustle culture, even though the reality is they probably aren't embodying it either. They're saying you need to do all this stuff because they think that's what makes someone successful, but they're likely also not doing it because they are prioritizing themselves with it.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you see on social media is not true. Jess, you can agree with that. There are people who are in the marketing field, so we know how social media works and how content works, how content creators create their content. So don't think that when someone, like when you see a video on social media or anything, and with all those motivational quotes and telling you to keep on hustling, oh, this is how I got my business to this level because I sacrificed so many things in my life. It's really not worth it. I don't think like it's worth it to sacrifice like family time, or time with your pets, or other things that you love. Like I said, your business it's not your life, it's part of your life, and your life has different parts, and the business is one of them. And you need to make that difference like very clearly in your mind. It's part of my life, it's not my life. And I'm sure you have other things that you'd love to do apart from working long hours. Like, I don't know, it could be something very silly or small, like just reading a good book, having tea, or playing with your cat and your dog, just spending time with your family, or go on a hike, spend time on the beach. Like, why should we sacrifice those things just because we want to achieve the success so quickly?
Yeah. And I think, excuse me, it's a lie that's told to us that we internalize, and we think we have to sacrifice in order to be successful. And I think back, because I definitely lived in household culture for like a decade, and I was a workaholic. So the idea of not working, like the idea, if you told that, Neha, to my 20-some-year-old self, I would have immense anxiety, because the idea that I existed beyond my work role was anxiety inducing. The idea of I'm going to spend 2 hours just watching TV would literally give me anxiety. And I know during that time, I would also talk about what I was doing to be successful, but I was also like abusing Adderall to be able to work more and to have more billable hours. And so if someone looked at what I was doing, they'd say, wow, they're growing so fast. And it's like, yeah, because I work for 20 hours a day, because I'm using Adderall in an abusive manner. And then what happened when I would crash and I would go off of it is I would just get almost suicidal with it, because the drop of the dopamine is so high. And after a while, I was like, oh, this isn't good. And so you also don't always know what's going on with those people who are saying this is the path to success. And it's so easy to sit in that and to stay in it when you even subconsciously know it's not healthy. But it can be really hard to break out of that and to start prioritizing other things and even find who you are outside of working.
Yeah, that's true. Like I said, like most of the people that I know who are today have a very good life balance. There are people who have worked a lot in the past, and then they got like really bad burnouts. Like they got really sick, and the health was not on the point, and they decided to make a choice. Different way of doing business. But like you said, the people who tells you to keep on hustling, we don't know what's going on in their life. And I think like everyone, like everyone should decide the type of lifestyle that they want. Like if at some point, like you have to make the choice, it goes back to the same thing. Do I want my business to be my life, or do I want to have other things in my life? And the business is just a part of my life, but it complements, everything. And like everything is in line. I feel like when everything is in line in your life, and this is how you're going to achieve success. When I say everything is like your business, your personal time, your personal relationships, everything else that you love to do. Like everything needs to have a balance. And this is how also there are also the thing that So like us, like marketers, we need creativity to get things going. The more that we spend like long hours working on tasks or in front of the laptop or in our room, the creativity is going to decrease. Like from my personal experience, the more like you're just doing like one thing and like just not changing your environment or anything, the creativity decreases. But when you have like a balance, like, you know, you're doing other things as well, like just, you know, that creativity, it hits you when you're not expecting it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it hits you in like very unexpected ways, in places that you never thought that you would get that marketing idea just like that. So yeah, so we can't like keep on being like people who are just gonna be working weekends and never disconnecting from work. I feel like when we disconnect from work is when our mind, like your brain, is really at rest. And then when you come up on the weekday, you're like all motivated and you have all those ideas coming up in your mind.
Yeah, there's a lot of studies that show that when you disengage your prefrontal cortex, so when athletes like listen to music and they're able to kind of turn off their brain from thinking, you're able to access a deeper part of your brain that is still processing information with it, which is always super fascinating because it doesn't feel intuitive. Like it feels like, oh, if I go distract myself with something, I'm gonna lose progress on a project, when really that could be the thing that your mind needs in order to really do the deep work on it.
Yeah, exactly. Even like you know, taking little breaks during the day, that helps a lot as well. I'm not saying like take an hour break every 2 hours, but like 5 minutes just to get off your laptop and I don't know, just talk to a friend, do something else, like not work.
Yeah.
It helps. It actually helps your brain. Because like we said, the creativity, it's not going to be there like all the time, every day, every single day, every time. No.
Yeah. Well, Neha, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to learn more about you or work with you, where do they go?
To my LinkedIn, please. So I hope we're gonna put the link so you can
Yes.
connect with me to my LinkedIn. And like I said, I offer services mostly in content strategy, your content creation, content writing. I'm also like by the end of this year or before, I'm going to start my coaching program where I'm going to coach new business owners, so new people where marketing is not really their strength, but they really want to be business owners and they have like an amazing idea that they want to put forward. So yeah, I'm gonna launch the coaching program as well. So you can always connect with me on LinkedIn and you will see the updates when it's here.
Perfect. And we'll put all relevant links in the notes below, including a link to your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay. See everyone on the next episode.